Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall
Super
away.
excited to be here and talking to you today. My name is Ty, and I am a home advisor with Better, basically a loan consultant, as well as a financial wellness consultant and owner of Debt Down Assets Up, which is my company. So we only have 30 minutes together. The way I've structured our discussion today is I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me, and then I have some tips on navigating the home ownership and home buying process, and then I want to leave some time for Q&A. I'm a little bit of a chatterbox, so I'm just going to get started, and I'm going to try to keep my eye on the chat as well, so pardon my eyes darting back and forth. So, as I discussed, quick intro, power of home ownership, the 5 tips to help you navigate the process, and then Q&A time. So what I found very interesting about my journey so far in financial wellness, I've been doing this going on 6 years. Every time I'm at a point where I'm at a transition or needing to learn something, I end up in a role that supports that. So when I initially went into financial consulting, I was working at a company where I was getting the support that I needed while helping people and like navigating them through the process. And now that I am a homeowner, I was actually started at Better at that time and then purchased my home shortly thereafter. So just for context, I was approved with my husband last year to purchase a home. We were looking at a multi-family property to start to do like house hacking, which is where you either purchase the home and rent out a couple of rooms, or you rent out a floor, depending on how much space you have. And I was convinced that we wouldn't even be able to buy in New York. Like I thought that we had to move. We wouldn't be able to stay here. But the stars kind of aligned. So we were standing in a property, which it was nice. It checked some of the boxes. It was cool. But I felt like I was forcing it, trying to make it happen. And my husband is like, don't force it. He's like, the right house will come along. It'll align with our goals. We don't have to force it. And it's good that he said that, because the next day I was laid off. And I just think about how like devastating that could have been for our financial goals and the home ownership dream. So I was laid off in March. I started with Better in July of last year. I was reapproved in August, found the home in September, and we closed in November. So we're coming up right on a year of home ownership. And I see it from both sides, because obviously I do the home advising and consulting side daily, but I also think about it from a holistic financial wellness piece. So that's what I'm going to bring to today's discussion today. So, and I didn't even say my company name. So my company is Debt Down Assets Up, and it is my company where I work with clients personally. And then, like I said, Better is what I do by day and support people there. So let's dig in. So the power of homeownership, I think, is something that's kind of understated from the completely like superficial base level. It's a huge accomplishment. Like it is everyone's part of their American dream. I feel like that you are officially adulting when you've purchased a home, right? When you purchase a home and then you're excited to go to IKEA or to Crate and Barrel to furnish it, right? Like that's your Saturday. So that's one big part of it. It also can offer a lot of stability. So I come from homeowners, but my husband is the first in his family to own a home. Everyone was renters. And while we felt, supported and safe where we were, there's something very different about being able to knock down a wall if you want to, redo the kitchen, all these kinds of things. It really lets you put down roots in a very meaningful way. And I think homeownership is one of those things that supports that. The larger thing, though, and why I'm super excited about it is a generational wealth building tool. As people of color, we didn't have access to it for many years. And when we did have access to it, there were a lot of things in place that either made it too expensive or put us in less desirable areas. So now that things are starting to level out and be a little bit more accessible to us, this is our time to jump on it if you want to get into it. So I think of it as a two-pronged approach as well, because it's generational wealth building if you think about Maybe you have access to different neighborhoods to send your kids to where they have stronger schools that may be supported and more resources. So they're going to have interact with different people they never were able to, rather. They're going to have opportunities they never had before, that kind of thing. But even on the wealth building piece, if you have enough equity in your home, you can, pay off debt, you can go on a nice vacation, or you can be savvy and start a business or use part of the equity in your home to purchase a new property. Now you have a rental. So there's so many things that are opening up that real estate really lets us unlock. And I think this generation specifically is going to be doing a lot with that. So that's that. Now let's dig in a little bit and talk numbers. So I like to make sure that we know all of these things up front. And credit score, debt to income, for a credit score, we're looking at the creme de la creme rates are going to be 750 and above. But that's not to discourage you if you're less than 750 right now. 700, you can still get really good rates. And even if you have like 600s, high 500s, there may still be products available for you. But in terms of like the most affordable ones, that's going to be if you have that 750 score. And just to give a little bit more context, I'm going to be speaking from the lens of conventional mortgages. We do also FHA loans at Better, but conventional products are typically going to be the most affordable product for you, especially if you have a really strong financial profile. And after this conversation, you're going to be on your way to doing that. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. The other piece thinking about is debt to income ratio. So basically, if you think about your monthly debts added on to what you think your mortgage payment is, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, you add those together and you divide that by your gross monthly income. So if all of your liabilities, including your mortgage, come out to $1,000 a month, and then your gross income for the month is $3,000, you're at about 33.33% DTI. That's pretty solid. While you can go up to 50%, I never advise any client, whether it's a client with Better or my personal client, one, who wants that much money tied up in their house? You don't want to be house poor. We don't want to be poor in spirit. We don't want to be poor in pocket. We don't want to be house poor. So let's make sure we have room between our monthly goals as well as the obligations that we have. The sweet spot, I would say, I like to keep people under is 43% or less. Another thing to think about is your ideal price and your down payment. Like before I got into the numbers, I was super guilty of browsing Zillow and looking at houses that there was no possible way I could afford and wouldn't be able to come up with a down payment for. It was more of a dream. So if you are really focused on the journey, think about what you'd be comfortable coming up with, as well as how much you'd be willing to pay down payment wise. As a first-time home buyer, you can put down as little as 3%. Obviously, there'll be PMI, private mortgage insurance, involved, and that's a monthly payment that you're basically paying to mitigate the risk to the lender. But depending on how liquid you want to be, it could make sense to put down a slightly lesser down payment so that after closing, you know that all of your money isn't tied up in that. But that's something that you want to discuss and kind of weigh the pros and cons of. One other thing that people don't, I think, take into consideration is what the property taxes are. Like if you want to be in this bomb neighborhood with the amazing schools, more power to you, but please know you're going to pay for it. What I recommend is if you've identified a couple of properties that you think could be nice, you can actually go on the website for that county and you can put in that specific address, and then you'll see what the taxes were for the past few years. That can give you a really good idea of if this still fits within your overall goals. Keep in mind that sometimes homeowners have special kinds of discounts or things available depending on their status, so you may not get the exact number, but this can be really useful to kind of give you some at least a ballpark. And I actually, when I was running through everything and figuring out our numbers for what we could comfortably afford, I used an app called Carl with a K, Mortgage Calculator. I don't know if it's for Android, but I have an iPhone, Blue Bubble Gang. And I literally would look up a property. I would put in what I thought our interest rate might be, putting in what the down payment was. I looked up the taxes, and it spat out what my principal, interest, tax, and insurance was. So that was super helpful because you can be approved for a ton, but you don't want to spend everything that you can be approved for. You want to take a quick pause to look at the chat. Carl's. Oh, hold on a second, guys. Carl's mortgage calculator. That's the app. So that's what I used. So any questions so far? Nope, looks like we're good. All right. So now this one is a little bit woo, but it is still practical. So I recommend creating a wish list, one, so that you have your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, and if they have this, take my money now, I want the keys list, right? What was really dope about doing this is, one, if you're buying with a partner or even buying with a parent or a sibling, you guys may have very different ideas of what a must-have is, right? Like for me, I needed light. I needed natural light. I have 27 plants. I'm not exaggerating. And I needed to know that they would have nourishment and light in here. For my husband, he was like, we need a driveway because he was spending an hour looking for parking every day. So I recommend writing down your lists, then comparing it with the person you're buying with and making sure that you're in alignment there. We actually got everything that was on our list except for being close to transportation, but you can't get it all. So it helps you because when you get to dream, you get to get really excited about the process, but it's also practical because it puts you and your partner on the same page. And then it's also when you're in a home and you're looking at tons of them and you're trying to decide what's the right one, what's the wrong one. If it doesn't align with the wish list, why are you wasting your time? Beat it. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, I'm gonna take off my loan officer. Sorry guys. I'm gonna take off my loan officer hat and put on my financial consultant hat. Please think about everything beyond the transaction, beyond the down payment, 3 to 20%, beyond closing costs, 1 to 3%, contingency, like I like to have a buffer, 1 to 3%. There's movers, there's decorating. Please have a These Homes Ain't Loyal fund, okay? We moved, I've said it multiple times, moved in November, right? We have since replaced the toilet, a sink, we've added a water softener, a water filter, washing machine, and the HVAC, which went right before my birthday in June, right before we had a huge heat wave. I have so many people that only think as far as the down payment and closing costs and maybe a little bit of money, but I have a lot of clients who are sometimes waiting for payday to have all of the closing costs in. They're, getting gifts from this person, getting gifts from that person. I understand the power of homeownership, but I want to make sure that it is a blessing to you and not a curse. So please have a buffer. A couple of other things here that you may not even think about that I had on my little budget spreadsheet, where if you're going from a 1 bedroom to like a house, think about increased utilities and heating. Think about, do you have to pay like garbage or a trash pickup, sewer, all that kind of stuff. If you're further from the train than you have ever been in your life and need a car, think about a second car fund. There's so many different things that go into home ownership, like actually keeping the home, that I feel like it isn't as holistic an approach as it could be. And a lot of people get caught off guard. And like I said, I ran numbers on numbers on numbers, and a lot of these things still caught me off guard. So please be mindful of that. Okay. Oh, cool. Thank you for adding that, Erica. All right, so now this is extremely important, but you don't really think about it until after the fact. So as with most industries, but especially real estate is very relationship driven. It starts with your realtor. They are the nexus for everything. And then you tend to get your other vendors from them, right? So this isn't a bad thing. Your realtor has done probably hundreds, maybe thousands of transactions. So they have people they can refer you to, whether it be a lender, a home inspector, a lawyer, whatever that is. I want to make sure that you are making a decision that is in alignment with what your goals are and that is the most affordable for you. I say that because let's say there's a specific lender that your realtor likes to work with because they know they can get things through quickly. Fine. make sure that you're looking at all of the numbers and not just assuming that everyone has your best interest at heart. This is not me disparaging anyone. This is me making sure you do your due diligence. Make sure that you get an official loan estimate. It is a government regulated document that has to be given 3 days after you make an application. And it's so important because a lender can quote you, let's say a 2.75. And you're like, holy crap, 2.75, that's amazing. Where do I sign? And then you get the loan estimate. And yeah, maybe it's a 2.75, but there's all these other fees that have been baked in that weren't initially disclosed to you. Before you sign on the dotted line, make sure you look at a loan estimate. And even though we hate when you do it, you can kind of pit lenders against each other. Let's say two people are offering very similar rates. If you think that maybe they could provide you with more credits or less points, and you really want to work with them, let them know. Play hardball as much as you can. Yes, it makes my life more difficult as a lender, but as a buyer, it's your responsibility and your right to shop around as much as you need to. Obviously, the home inspector piece too. If your realtor knows a home inspector, not saying it's shady, but I would maybe want an independent party to work on that for me. That's all. Okay. We're tracking good, guys. And the last one is to be patient. I kind of wanted to lead with this. There is a huge push right now to everyone needs to buy a home, right? Please buy a home, you have to buy a house, da 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 da. Like I said, homeownership can be amazing. It can be wonderful. It can be a blessing. It's also really expensive. And there's nothing wrong with waiting to stack your coins to figure out if you actually want to live in this place. Even as you're shopping, you don't have to jump on the first one just because you feel like you're being pressed to do so. Like, be as patient from beginning to end with the process. And even after you get the house, be patient. You cannot furnish it all in a day. You can't make all of the changes you have in a day. So make sure that whatever house you've selected has really strong bones so that you're comfortable with it and you don't mind taking the time to build up all of that. I have one more point, which I didn't add here, and it's really just more of a reminder that even as me being a loan officer, I do not disparage renters. And I think, unfortunately, society tends to say if you're renting, you're throwing money away. But that's not entirely true. And it really depends on your numbers. Because if you're buying a home, that's a huge investment that you have made. And you don't really have access to those funds afterwards. They're tied up in the house, right? It's difficult to liquidate because you have to sell it and hope that you can recoup your costs. There's all these different things. There's maintenance, there's increasing property taxes, all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you're a renter, you can still invest. You can invest in real estate investment trusts. You can do regular stock market investing. And if you wanted to up and move, you could. So please don't let anyone disparage your decision. If renting is on your heart, it's not wrong. Okay? Okay. Questions? Thoughts? Comments? And I'm happy to talk through whatever you guys want to talk through. I just, like I said, I'm a little bit of a chatterbox and wanted to make sure that we got through everything. Let me see anything. And I don't know if it would be useful. I do have the spreadsheet that I created. It's a little bit a lot, but I basically, when I was identifying like a lot of different properties, I listed out the purchase price, the NMLS ID, so I could send it to my realtor, the principal and interest, what the down payment would be based off of what we were comfortable putting down, 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever. And then once I had my whole spreadsheet, I then put like, okay, what are my notes? Does it have central air? Like what am I looking for and what does it have? Once I had those, I then populated it into my budget. And that helped me figure out, okay, on paper we can afford this, but considering the fact that we still want to save for travel, or we still want to build an emergency fund or a car fund, it helped shape that. I don't know if that'd be useful. I'd be happy to send that as follow-up to anyone who may be in the home journey, but that's what was really useful for me. Okay, I will. Hold on 1 second. Do not laugh at this last slide. So my Instagram, my website, my email. If anyone's on Peloton, this is my leaderboard name. Feel free to follow me. I will follow you back. But if you, sorry, if you, my best friend is here, sorry. If you email me though, I will send you the spreadsheet so that you have it and then you can adjust it as you need to. Like I said, it's been really helpful for me. Yes, Stephanie, I will motivate you to buy. That is what I'm here for. But yeah, any questions? Anybody in the home buying journey? Anybody? Ooh, I see Aparna's question. Sorry. Oh, great question, Aparna. So I'm seeing homes go for 100,000, 150. Oh, maybe you guys didn't see the question. Sorry. There's a bidding war going on in the Bay Area. Should we be tempted to get into this game or wait? I think that's a personal decision. What I will say is if a home is going $100,000, $150,000 over asking, which is happening in a lot of areas, you have to think about, is it going to appraise for that? Because if it doesn't appraise for that, so let's say it went for 500 and you offered 600,000, right? When the appraisal comes back, and if it's less, let's say it's 525, 550, and you offered 6, you're either going to have to negotiate with the seller to bring the purchase price down to what you guys agreed on, or you're going to have to bring the difference. So you maybe were planning to make a 5% down payment. Now maybe you have to make like a 10% down payment so that the numbers stay in line. Or you can choose to walk away. Because it's right now it's a seller's market, a lot of them are putting in contingencies that aren't even saying like, well, we're not going to be bringing anything different. We're not going to be changing the price. So whatever it appraises for a buyer, it's on you to cover the difference. So I would say be very, very careful about that. Think about what your numbers look like and what you're comfortable with. If it's a forever home and you have the flexibility to do that, perhaps. But I would just think about the implications of what if this home doesn't appraise. Okay, we're looking to purchase a second home. Use the first one as a rental. Great question. So you want to make sure that you have at least, I would say 20%, 25, depending on what the investor says, down payment. If you can maybe take equity out of your existing home, if you have flexibility for that, that can help. You also want to make sure you have a rental agreement, if not in place, at least lined up like a renter so that we can use part of your rental income to qualify you for that second home, because we're going to be looking at the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, PITI, for the current home as well as the new home, and that's going to impact your debt to income ratio. And you want to make sure that the home is going to be at least 50 miles from the new home is going to be at least 50 miles from the current one, just so we're on the same page with that. Okay, looking to buy, I hope that answered your question. Looking to buy my first home in the next year, working on debt reduction now, saving for all potential costs, has me worried that my timeline might be longer than expected. Totally feel that, Michelle. That is a super valid question. So there are a lot of different mortgage products and opportunities out there. You can go, like I said, conventional, you can do FHA, depending on what your credit profile looks like. There's also a program called NACA, N-A-C-A, hold on, sorry. Okay. So my husband and I almost went with that because, and it sounds like a dream product. Like there's no down payment, no closing costs, all of these different things. And it's true, it is 100% financing. But the problem with it, and the reason why a lot of people don't get all the way through the process, is a lot of back and forth. You sometimes are resubmitting documents. The way that I like to think of it is, it's kind of like a counselor mixed with a mortgage lender, in that the counselor is very overwhelmed and has a ton of cases that they're working on while also trying to get through the process. If you have time and if you're pretty flexible about where you can live, it can be really good. And I would say just look into it. I would also recommend, if you're going to go the NACA route, to find a NACA realtor, because they'll know the ins and outs and they'll have closed deals on that before. But let's say NACA isn't for you. There's a lot of state programs. So like, New York has SONIMA, State of New York Mortgage Assistance, where depending on where you live, they'll give you, I believe it's 3% of the down payment, or 3% of the closing costs, that kind of thing. For teachers, there are programs that exist, nurses, first responders. So you want to make sure that you're doing research and seeing what kind of programs can support the goal and maybe knock off some of those closing costs required. Hope that answered your question, Michelle. What are my thoughts on taking a home equity to use a down payment to invest in a second home or rental property versus liquidating funds of your own? That's a great question. I would want to look at your entire, this is debt down tie. I would want to look at your entire financial profile just to see where we are and make sure there's not any other outstanding debt that could be an issue. But I mean, literally, that is a really good way of leveraging an asset to get you more assets. Especially considering how low interest rates are right now, I don't think I would want to use my own money. Like, money is cheap. I would rather use my asset to get me more assets and stay as liquid as possible and keep money in my account. Hope that helps. If living outside the USA, you're able to point me to a guide on rules around purchasing a home in the US. Yvonne, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm not sure, and I don't want to misadvise you. I'm very sorry. I can try to do some research and find something, but I can tell you right now that I'm not qualified to know that right now. Jasmine, awesome. I hope that you close with them, but the savings are absolutely insane. Let's see. When it comes to using real estate as investment wealth building tools for properties, where do you see people go wrong here? So I don't know if people weigh the costs of what if the property doesn't sell for what I thought it was going to? What if I can't get my money out? There's so many different ways it can go. I think your numbers need to be really ironclad, and you need to account for vacancies if you're going to do if you're holding the property. There's just a lot of different things that I don't think people account for, and I don't think they realize how expensive it could possibly be. And it can be difficult depending on your financial profile to possibly, if you're doing like a buy, rehab, refinance, etc., depending on what your debt to income ratio looks like, depending on what your overall situation looks like, getting a more competitive loan and getting out of like hard money if that's what you did. Student loans are in deferment. Oh, thank you, Erica. Told you I chatter. Student loans are in deferment. Would you recommend prioritizing buying a home or using the bulk of savings to clip? I don't know your whole situation, Pearl. I am team, if the interest rates are low on them student loans, I'm not prioritizing them. I'm going to pay them, obviously. I'm not going to let them go to collections or let them get behind, but I'm also going to make sure that if part of my wealth building and overall joyous strategy is buying a home, I'm going to figure out how to make that work. Would an individual qualify for something for a home with a partner that will also be on a loan issue? Yes, Laura, it depends. So I would need to know a little bit more information, but that is definitely possible. And with NACA, you can't own a home at all. So like I said, NACA is super, super duper strict. But yeah, it is possible to take advantage of first-time home buyer options, even if a partner owns a house. And Jamil is absolutely right. You could get a multifamily. Please make sure you have enough in emergency fund and everything. But a multifamily and house hacking would be a nice way to have some income, paying down that mortgage and the student loans. Great tip. I think I got did I get everyone? I think I got everyone. Guys, thank you so much for all of your questions. I think we're at time. It was really wonderful talking to all of you. If you want me to send you the spreadsheets we talked about, just shoot me an email. And if you need anything, just let me know. And I hope to see you guys at Better or with my company or anything.